The clang of metal hitting metal ripped through the corridor as the prison gate slammed shut behind Adrian. Two guards dragged him forward, their fingers digging hard into his arms. His shoes scraped against the cold concrete floor, leaving dark marks that didn't matter to anyone except him. His breath shook, not because he was afraid of pain, but because he still could not understand how fast his life had collapsed. "Move!" one of the guards snapped. Shoving him so hard he stumbled. Adrian hit the ground on one knee. The guard kicked his side lightly, not enough to injure, but enough to humiliate. "We're not babysitters. Get up!" Adrian clenched his jaw and rose. "I can walk." "Good," the guard muttered. "Maybe you rich types learn faster than the others." They escorted him into the private wing. It wasn't luxury. It was simply less chaotic than the general prison blocks. But the smell of disinfectant and rust, the flickering lights, the echo of distant shouting, they still reminded him he was trapped. When the cell door slammed behind him, the sound hit him like a sentence etched into his bones. He sat on the thin mattress and covered his face with his hands. The cameras, the reporters, the flashing lights, the accusations, the betrayal, all of it swirled in his mind like a storm. "They've taken everything," he whispered to himself. But silence swallowed his voice. Whole. Miles away, Mira was scrubbing the tiles of Madame Lucia's mansion. Her hands moved quickly, but her eyes stayed lowered. Madame Lucia paced behind her, heels clicking sharply. "Are you blind?" Lucia snapped. "Look at this spot. Do you call this clean?" "I'm sorry, Ma," Mira replied softly. "I'll redo it." "You better. I don't tolerate laziness. You people think I'm paying you to decorate the floors?" Mira swallowed her hurt. "No, Ma. I'll fix it." Lucia folded her arms. "Hurry. My lawyer will be here soon." Is it about your son?" Mira asked timidly. Lucia's glare sharpened like a blade. "I didn't ask for your opinion." "Yes, Ma," Mira whispered quickly. "I'm sorry." She scrubbed harder, her wrists aching, but she forced herself to continue. She couldn't lose this job. Her siblings depended on her. But a tiny ache tugged at her chest whenever she thought of Adrian, the young man she'd seen only a handful of times in the mansion, distant yet polite in a way his mother never was. If only kindness could soften the world. That evening, Mira took an external cleaning shift, an extra job she needed to pay overdue bills. When she stepped off the transport van and saw the sign, Private Correctional Unit, Section B, her heart skipped. She had not expected this. A guard handed her a cleaning pass. "Wing 3, don't wander. Don't talk to inmates unless necessary." "Yes, sir," she whispered. Inside, the halls were cold and metallic. She moved quietly with her cleaning supplies, staying close to the supervisor. When she entered the designated room, her breath caught. Adrian was sitting on the bed, staring at the wall. He looked up. She froze. He froze. "Mira," he whispered, disbelief filling his voice. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, gripping her bucket. Adrian stood slowly. His cuffs clinked. What are you doing here?" I'm on cleaning duty. I didn't know this was your block." He stared at her as if trying to understand something impossible. "They're making you clean prison wings now?" "It pays extra," she said softly. He noticed the tiredness in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. "You shouldn't be here. This place isn't safe." "I'm fine, sir," she replied gently. "No," Adrian said firmly. "Whoa!" Mira looked away. "Please, Let me work. I don't want to get in trouble. He stepped back, giving her space, but his eyes followed her every movement as she began cleaning. She worked carefully, quietly, but he noticed the shake in her hands. She had always been gentle, polite, but now she seemed weighed down by something heavier than exhaustion. After a few minutes, Adrian spoke again. "Mira, how is life at the mansion?" Her hands paused. "I'm managing," she said. "That's not an answer." She hesitated. "It's not my place to complain, sir." "But you're suffering," he said quietly. "Sir, please," she whispered, glancing nervously at a door. "If your mother hears, I talked too much." Adrian's fists clenched. "She doesn't control you here." "She controls my job, sir, and I need it." The defeat in her voice cut deeper than any insult he'd heard from the guards. He stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled. "You don't deserve to be treated like that," he said gently. Her eyes lifted, surprised by his kindness. "Thank you." Something unspoken passed between them. Fragile, unexpected, almost forbidden. Mira finished cleaning and slowly walked toward the door, but before leaving, she looked back. "Please stay strong, sir." Adrian nodded, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in weeks. When she disappeared down the hallway, he whispered to himself, "Why does seeing her feel like breathing again?" Meanwhile, Mira hurried down the hallway, heart racing. She never imagined she would meet Adrian again. Not here. Not like this. She pressed her hand against her chest to steady herself. Something about him now felt different. Softer. Human. Hurt. Why did that bother her so much? 2 days later, Mira returned to the prison for another shift. She told herself she wasn't hoping to see Adrian again. But when she was assigned the same wing, her stomach fluttered in a way she couldn't explain. When she stepped into the room, Adrian was sitting with a stack of papers. He looked up immediately. "You came back," he said, before he could stop himself. "I'm just doing my job, sir." "Right," he murmured, though his eyes softened. "How's my, mother?" Mira hesitated. "She's trying to get you out, sir. But she's very stressed." "And taking it out on you." Mira looked down. "It's fine." "It's not," he said again. "You don't deserve that." She didn't answer. Instead, she wrung a cloth in her bucket. He watched the movement of her hands, slow and delicate, and something in him felt grounded, anchored by her presence. "Mira," he said quietly, "I know this isn't your life's dream. Why do you stay?" She paused, surprised by the question. "Because I must. My siblings, they rely on me." Adrian nodded slowly. "You're stronger than you look." "And you're kinder than you think," she whispered, before she realized the words had escaped her. Silence filled the room, a warm, trembling kind of silence neither of them wanted to break. While you're enjoying this story, remember to like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Your support keeps these stories coming. The first time she spoke to him, her voice barely rose above a whisper. She was scrubbing the corner of the cell when she asked if he needed water. Not because she was instructed to. Not because anyone was watching. She asked because she noticed his hands shaking. He looked up, surprised. No one ever asked him anything anymore. "I'm fine," he said, though his throat was dry. She nodded, but a few minutes later she quietly placed a small cup beside the bed anyway. She didn't look at him when she did it. She just left it there, as if kindness was something she had learned to hide. That stayed with him. The next day, when she returned, he thanked her. She froze, mop still in her hands. No one thanked her. Ever. Her eyes flicked toward the corridor, making sure no one was nearby. Then she nodded once and went back to work. But her lips trembled slightly, as if she was fighting something she didn't quite understand. Over the days that followed, their conversations became small, careful things. A question about the weather, a comment about the food, silence that felt heavy, but not uncomfortable. He noticed things, the way she flinched at loud footsteps, the way she apologized, even when she hadn't done anything wrong, the faint bruises she tried to hide beneath long sleeves. One afternoon, he asked her why she worked here. She hesitated, then shrugged. "It's what I was given." That answer bothered him more than if she had said she had no choice. At the mansion, the woman who raised him was growing impatient. She hated disorder, hated unpredictability, and more than anything, she hated weakness. The maid had always irritated her. The girl moved too quietly, endured too much, looked at her with eyes that never fought back. It made her uncomfortable. It made her cruel. When she learned that the maid had been assigned to the prison wing, her irritation turned sharp. "Do not forget your place," she snapped one morning, blocking the maid's path. "You are there to clean, not to speak, not to linger." "Yes, ma'am," the maid said softly. "And if I hear even a whisper of you growing attached to that prisoner," the woman added, her voice cold, "you will regret it." The maid bowed her head and said nothing. Back in the cell, the man sensed something was wrong before she said a word. She was quieter than usual. Her movements rushed, her eyes avoided his. "You don't have to talk," he said gently. She swallowed. "I'm sorry if I've done something wrong." "You haven't," he replied immediately. "I would tell you." That made her pause. No one had ever said that to her either. A long silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of dripping water and distant footsteps. Then, without meaning to, he said, "She hurts you." The mop stopped moving. Her back stiffened. Slowly, she turned toward him, fear flickering across her face. "You shouldn't say things like that." "It's true," he said quietly. "I see it." She shook her head. "You don't understand." "Then help me," he said. "Because I want to." Her eyes filled before she could stop them. She looked away quickly, wiping her face with the back of her hand, ashamed of the tears. "I'm used to it," she whispered. "Please don't make it worse." That night, after she left, he couldn't sleep. For the first time since his arrest, his thoughts weren't consumed by lawyers or accusations or the humiliation of being stripped of everything he owned. They were consumed by a girl with tired eyes and a quiet strength that felt heavier than chains. Days later, the mother visited the prison. She didn't come to see him. She came to be seen. Her heels echoed down the corridor, her presence sharp and commanding. Guards straightened as she passed. The maid, spotting her from a distance, felt her stomach twist. She tried to retreat, but it was too late. The woman's gaze locked onto her. "Come here," she ordered. The maid obeyed. "I warned you," the woman said softly, too softly. "Did I not?" "I've done nothing wrong," the maid replied, voice shaking. The woman smiled. Then she slapped her. The sound cracked through the corridor. The guards looked away. Inside the cell, he heard it. He stood up so fast, the chains rattled. "Hey!" he shouted, gripping the bars. "Leave her alone." The woman turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "You," she said, coolly, "are in no position to raise your voice." He stared at her, anger burning through the helplessness. "If you have a problem, take it out on me, not her." Something in his tone startled even her. She stepped closer to the cell, lowering her voice. "You have already ruined enough. Do not drag her into your mess." "She didn't choose this," he shot back. "None of this." The woman straightened, signaling the guards to move the maid away. As the maid was pulled back, their eyes met. "I'm sorry," she mouthed. That was the moment something inside him broke open. Halfway through this story, if you're feeling the weight of these moments, take a second to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more emotionally powerful stories like this. Your support helps keep these stories alive. That night, he made a decision. He would not survive this by hardening himself. He would survive it by holding on to the one thing that still felt human. Her. The next time she came, he didn't pretend anymore. "You deserve better," he said. She shook her head. "Please don't say that." "Why not?" "Because hope hurts more," she replied. He nodded slowly. "Then let me carry some of it for you." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and for the first time she didn't look away. And in that small, broken place, something dangerous began to grow. Love. The change didn't go unnoticed. Guards began watching more closely. Conversations were cut short. The maid was reassigned twice in 1 week, moved away from his cell, then brought back again, as if someone couldn't decide whether to punish her or keep her close. He noticed her exhaustion before she spoke. "They're moving me again," she whispered one morning, barely daring to look at him. His chest tightened. "Where?" She shook her head. "I don't know. Somewhere worse." He gripped the bars, lowering his voice. "This is because of me." She looked up sharply. "No, don't say that. It's true." She stepped closer, fear flashing across her face. "If they hear you, listen to me," he said, cutting her off. "If staying away from me keeps you safe, I'll do it." Her lips parted, but no words came out. For a moment, the prison around them faded, leaving only the space between them and everything they were both trying not to feel. "I don't want safety without you," she finally said. The words stunned him. He had lost fortunes without blinking, lost friends who vanished the moment his name became poison. But this was something else entirely. Before he could respond, footsteps echoed down the corridor. She pulled back instantly, eyes down, posture closed. The moment shattered like glass. That night, the mother made her move. She sat in her study, surrounded by wealth that had never once brought her peace, and made a call that would change everything. "Transfer the maid," she said calmly. "Effective immediately." There was a pause on the line. "Yes," she continued. "To the outer facility. The one with night shifts only." Another pause. "No explanations. I'll handle my son." When she arrived at the prison the next day, she didn't bother hiding her intentions. "You've grown attached," she said to him through the bars, voice smooth and controlled. He didn't answer. She smiled thinly. "Silence won't protect her." His fists clenched. "What did you do?" "Nothing she didn't deserve," she replied. "You forget who you are, and more importantly, who you belong to." "I don't belong to you," he said, his voice steady despite the rage burning inside him. She leaned closer. "You always have." He stared at her, finally seeing the truth he had avoided his entire life. This wasn't concern. It wasn't discipline. It was ownership. "You hurt her," he said quietly. "She is disposable," the woman replied. "You are not." That was the moment something inside him snapped. "She is the only one who treated me like a human being," he said. Not a headline. Not a disgrace. A person. The woman straightened. Then you will learn what it costs to forget your place. That evening, the maid didn't come, or the next day, or the one after that. The silence became unbearable. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Every sound in the corridor made his heart race, only to fall again when it wasn't her. On the fourth day, a guard finally spoke. "She's gone," the man said quietly. "Transferred!" "Where?" he demanded. The guard hesitated. "You didn't hear it from me. Outer facility, night duty." His heart sank. That place was known for breaking people. That night he did something reckless. He called his lawyer. Not about his case, not about appeals or settlements. "I need a favor," he said. "Something off the record." The lawyer sighed. "You don't have favors left." "Then I'll create one," he replied. "I know things. Names, accounts, secrets." Silence. "You'd burn everything?" the lawyer asked. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "For her. If this story is pulling you in, take a moment right now to like the video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. Stories like this only grow because of your support. At the outer facility, the maid struggled to survive. The work was harder, the supervisors colder. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by shouting and slammed doors. But what hurt the most was the absence. She had never allowed herself to imagine a future. Now she had tasted one, and it was gone. One night, as she sat alone during her break, staring at nothing, a message was slipped onto the table beside her. No name, just 4 words. "Don't lose hope. Ever." Her breath caught. She read it again and again. Tears filled her eyes, but this time she didn't wipe them away. Back at the prison, the walls began to shift. Information leaked. Deals were whispered. Guards grew tense. The mother received calls she didn't expect. "You should be careful," one voice warned. "Your son is talking." Her grip tightened on the phone. "He wouldn't dare." "He already has." For the first time in years, fear crept into her perfectly controlled world. Days later, the maid was summoned unexpectedly. A transfer order, back to the main facility. Her hands shook as she read it. When she walked into the corridor again, his cell door was already open. They saw each other at the same time. For a second, neither moved. Then she ran. She stopped just short of the bars, breathless, eyes shining with disbelief. "You came back," he said, his voice breaking. "You did this," she whispered. "I would do worse," he replied softly. They stood there, separated by steel, closer than they had ever been. But danger lingered in the air. They both knew it. Love had cost them already. And the final price had yet to be paid. He stared at her, finally seeing the truth he had avoided his entire life. This wasn't concern, it wasn't discipline, it was ownership. "You hurt her," he said quietly. "She is disposable," the woman replied. "You are not." That was the moment something inside him snapped. "She is the only one who treated me like a human being," he said. "Not a headline, not a disgrace, a person." The woman straightened. "Then you will learn what it costs to forget your place." That evening, the maid didn't come. Or the next day, or the one after that. The silence became unbearable. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Every sound in the corridor made his heart race, only to fall again when it wasn't her. On the fourth day, a guard finally spoke. "She's gone," the man said quietly. "Transferred." "Where?" he demanded. The guard hesitated. "You didn't hear it from me. Outer facility. Night duty." His heart sank. That place was known for breaking people. That night, he did something reckless. He called his lawyer, not about his case, not about appeals or settlements. "I need a favor," he said. "Something off the record." The lawyer sighed. "You don't have favors left." "Then I'll create one," he replied. "I know things. Names, accounts, secrets." Silence. "You'd burn everything?" the lawyer asked. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "For her. If this story is pulling you in, take a moment right now to like the video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. Stories like this only grow because of your support. At the outer facility, the maid struggled to survive. The work was harder, the supervisors colder. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by shouting and slammed doors. But what hurt the most was the absence. She had never allowed herself to imagine a future. Now, she had tasted one. And it was gone. One night, as she sat alone during her break, staring at nothing, a message was slipped onto the table beside her. No name, just 4 words. "Don't lose hope. Ever." Her breath caught. She read it again and again. Tears filled her eyes, but this time she didn't wipe them away. Back at the prison, the walls began to shift. Information leaked. Deals were whispered. Guards grew tense. The mother received calls she didn't expect. "You should be careful," one voice warned. "Your son is talking." Her grip tightened on the phone. "He wouldn't dare." "He already has." For the first time in years, fear crept into her perfectly controlled world. Days later, the maid was summoned unexpectedly. A transfer order, back to the main facility. Her hands shook as she read it. When she walked into the corridor again, his cell door was already open. They saw each other at the same time. For a second, neither moved. Then she ran. She stopped just short of the bars, breathless, eyes shining with disbelief. "You came back," he said, his voice breaking. "You did this," she whispered. "I would do worse," he replied softly. They stood there, separated by steel, closer than they had ever been. But danger lingered in the air. They both knew it. Love had cost them already, and the final price had yet to be paid. The tension in the prison thickened the moment she returned. Every guard's glance lingered a second too long. Every door sounded louder than before. He felt it the instant he saw her again. Something had shifted. This time, their reunion was not just relief. It was urgency. She walked toward his cell slowly, carefully, as if the walls themselves were listening. When their eyes met, neither smiled. There was too much at stake now. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "I know," she replied. "But I couldn't disappear again. Not without seeing you." He stepped closer to the bars, lowering his voice. "My mother knows. She's tightening everything." She nodded. "She's watching me too." Silence settled between them, heavy and fragile. They both understood what it meant. Love had pushed them past the point of safety. There was no undoing it now. Days passed under constant tension. Schedules changed without notice. Guards rotated unexpectedly. Conversations were cut short, yet somehow they found moments, seconds stolen between duties, where they spoke in fragments, glances, unfinished sentences. He told her about the deals he had made, the names he had given up, the power he had willingly burned to protect her. "You didn't have to do that," she said, fear creeping into her voice. "I did," he answered calmly, "because everything I thought mattered before was empty. You're not." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She had learned to survive by staying strong. Still, her voice shook when she said, "I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." He smiled sadly. "You're the reason I found something worth keeping." The mother sensed her grip slipping. Phone calls went unanswered. Old allies hesitated. Whispers followed her wherever she went. For the first time, she realized that control built on fear was fragile. One crack was all it took. She confronted her son one final time. "You think this ends well?" she asked coldly. "You think love makes you strong?" He met her gaze without fear. "No. It makes me honest." She laughed bitterly. "She will ruin you." "She saved me," he replied, "from becoming you." The words landed harder than any accusation ever had. That night, the decision was made. It wasn't dramatic, no alarms, no chaos, just patience, timing, and trust. A guard who owed him a favor. A door left unlocked a few seconds longer than it should have been. A path memorized over weeks of observation. She waited where they had agreed, heart pounding so loudly she was sure it would give her away. Then she saw him. For a moment, neither moved. Then she ran. He caught her hands, grounding her, steadying them both. "We don't look back," he whispered. They moved together through shadowed corridors, every step a quiet rebellion against everything that had tried to break them. Fear followed them, but it no longer led. When they reached the outside, the night air hit them like freedom itself. Cool, vast, real. She stopped, overwhelmed, breathing it in as if she had never truly breathed before. "We did it," she whispered. "Not yet," he said gently. "But we will." They disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind the walls that had defined their pain. Time passed. The truth came out slowly, then all at once. Corruption exposed, power structures collapsed, the mother's influence faded, not in scandal, but in silence. No dramatic fall, just irrelevance. He faced consequences, but not alone. The world no longer saw him as just a fallen billionaire or a disgraced name. It saw a man who chose compassion when cruelty would have been easier. She found her voice. No longer a maid who endured in silence, but a woman who knew her worth. She learned, grew, and stood beside him, not behind, not beneath. When they married, it wasn't extravagant. No headlines, no spectacle. Just two people who had survived something together. When he looked at her, he didn't see what she had suffered. He saw what she had overcome. And when she looked at him, she didn't see wealth or loss. She saw a man who chose love when power tried to harden him. Their story spread quietly, not as gossip, but as inspiration. A reminder that kindness can grow in the darkest places, that love doesn't always begin in freedom, but it always leads there. And as they walked forward into a life rebuilt by choice, not control, one truth remained clear. Compassion changed everything. If this story moved you, take a moment to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories where love rises against the odds. Because some stories don't just entertain, they remind us who we can be.